the creative journey. It's easy to get lost, but don't worry, you'll lift off. Sometimes you just need a creative pep talk.
Hey, you're listening to Creative Pep Talk, a weekly podcast companion for your creative journey. I'm your host, Andy J. Pizza. I'm a New York Times bestselling author and illustrator, and this show is just everything I'm learning about building and maintaining a thriving creative practice. Let's get into it. Illustrator Sarah Walsh is on the show today. Sarah is a longtime friend of the show, one of our first guests ever on Creative Pep Talk, all the way back on episode 79, and she returns today. Sarah has illustrated a ton of books, Hats of Faith, a gorgeous illustrated version of the book Matilda, which is a family favorite of ours, and countless others. She's also worked with a ton of well-known clients and brands like PBS and Flow Magazine, Hallmark, The Guardian, etc., so on and so forth. Her handcrafted art is so beautiful, and we both have an affinity for the likes of Mary Blair and that kind of chalky gouache vibe. And my favorite thing about Sarah, beyond her brilliant illustration, is she's just super fun to chat with. And I cried laughing in this talk, and I was moved and inspired, and it was just so much fun. She has a new project out. It is called Horse Girl, and it's a zine that she wrote and illustrated, and it is moving, and it's a cinematic zine. I kid you not. It's just really brilliant. Highly recommend picking this up, especially if you're a horse girl. Even if you weren't, I wasn't a horse girl, but I got tons from it, and I was really inspired by it. This episode has more of that indie spirit that we've kind of been harping on about and ranting about in almost every episode lately. I feel like the way that tech and, Silicon Valley has just moved into the creative space and kind of owned it means that we need to get the DIY spirit, the punk spirit, the zine spirit back and start owning our own creative projects in the real world and on the internet. But we need to take ownership over our creativity. And this zine that Sarah put out, I think really is a great example of that. We talk about stuff along those lines. We talk about why you should quit waiting to be picked by a publisher or a record label or whatever and just start making. And there's also inspiration in this episode for how to get more of yourself, more of your substance into your work by mining everything that happened and what you were like and what you're obsessed by as a kid. And stick until the end, and I'll be back with our creative call to adventure called BMT, Big Meaty Taste, like the Subway sandwich, how to make your work bigger, meatier, tastier by packing it full of the good stuff. Not just making fashionable stuff, but how to give it real heart, real substance by tapping into your own personal symbolism. I'll be back with that, but for now, enjoy my fabulous chat with my friend, Sarah Walsh.
I don't necessarily care what people think, but I'm definitely like a modifier, and I want people to feel comfortable around me. And so I immediately not mold, but you know what I mean? I'm just like, and I think I'm a mom. Like I've been a mom since I was very young. So I'm just constantly picking up, cues on like, are they having a good time? Are they, but you know what? When we're adults, I'm like, it is on you. If you're not having a good time, that is not my responsibility. Like I'm trying to like step back from that, but
it's hard for me. It's very hard. I mean, I think I think if you're a sensitive person, then you're sensitive
Yes.
to other people's emotions and their states of being. And so you're there. You're like, I want to feel good right now, but I can't feel good when you're feeling so bad. It's very unhealthy, but it is the way that that's my nature. I've had to learn a lot about that.
I know. My husband and I went to the back to school night where the teachers give presentations. These 3 teachers were on it. I felt like I was at a TED Talk. And one of the slides, I'm serious. And one of the slides was like a cross-stitched plaque that said, I can be okay even if you are not okay.
That's good.
And it hit me like a brick. And I like fumbled for my phone and I took a picture of it. And I was like, can I have these people as teachers in life? Like, it hit me because
what was it, a poster?
It was like a cross stitch, like home sweet home type thing. Yeah. But it said, I can be okay even if you're not okay.
Yeah.
And I just seeing that, I realized that is something I struggle with. And I still think about it. And that was like a year and a half ago. So
there's a lot there. I also, I think there's 2 things that I've heard someone say, like, you can carry these 2 pieces of paper in your pocket. And I feel like this could apply to any polarizing truths, where that one was like, you are meaningful and important in all the universe. And then the other piece of paper that you put in your other pocket is like, you are a speck of dust. And you just pull out whichever one you need, because to me, I am the type of person that needs to read that sentiment, because I get crippled with empathy.
For sure.
And, and getting taken advantage of for that. Whereas there are other people who need to hear the exact opposite, which is like, the opposite sentiment that comes to mind that's also true is like, justice. Everyone needs justice, or none of us have it. Like, that. So there's like this what?
Teacher. You just said something. And because I was thinking about how, I was like excited to see you today and talk with you. And I thought about you as a person, and I thought about me as a person. And I think about how much you've accomplished and done. And I think about my journey and how much I feel like
you've done a ton.
I'll just say, I've accomplished some cool things, but at the same time, whatever. But I thought about just what our industry like values and what it doesn't value. And I think when you get invited to go on a podcast, you sort of, especially one as fantastic as yours and, has a lot of listeners. And I think most of the listeners are pretty sweet, nice people too.
They are. Yeah.
But like, there's a part of me that always feels like, oh, time to put on my serious art business hat, and I have to be serious.
Yeah.
And it's so silly. And I was thinking about how like, I'm a goofy nerd, weirdo, and I say this as a compliment. I feel like you're the same.
I am.
And most of my friends are goofy. And here's my point. I swear to God, I'm getting to it. I wonder sometimes if our industry don't value like goofy people, like design, illustration. Maybe when you get into more comics, like the funny people are like the rock stars.
Yeah.
But I feel like the children's book industry and design, just humor and goofiness as a person, I feel like it's like it lacks authoritative vibes.
Yeah.
And therefore is not perceived as, to me, maybe this is just a little chip I have on my shoulder.
I mean, I think you're totally right. Yeah.
But I wanted to talk to you about it because I know I've wondered if you've had similar thoughts as like, you're on this path and you've done things your own way. And I've tried to do things my own way too, because in the end, like you have to just be yourself, and it sounds cliche, but especially when you're freelancing, you have to put out there who you want to be and what kind of work you want to be. I'm going to just channel dad energy right now, but I have this here's my dad energy coming out. It's like cheesy metaphor of like when you're freelancing and you start out, you have this brick and you decide to make a house out of it and you're like, oh, cool. And you're really good at making that house. And people are like, I want you to make that house for me. But you have to make sure that you like the brick. See how dad energy that is? It's just like, so like,
I mean,
but
that's just my
corny,
podcast, the dad energy metaphor. That's just what it is. You're right in the right place.
But it's like, if I tried to be this serious artist, I would hate what I'm doing and I would hate everything. What's the point of that?
Yeah,
so anyway.
Exactly. It's a great segue into one of the main things I want to talk to you about is the Horse Girl zine.
Oh yeah, you got it.
Absolutely love. I love that you did this. Hilarious. I want to talk about specific things in it that are super great.
Oh man, that makes my heart like, thank you
good.
So much. It's so nice.
And I'm excited for people and, the people that listen to the show to see it and hear about it. Cause it's really, really good. And I think it's a great example of exactly what artists need to do, which is just, triple down on the thing that makes them for whatever reason. And I think that you talking about goofiness, it brings up one of the things I wanted to say, which was we'll talk about like, let's just do this. You talk about it first because it makes more sense.
I don't know what to say now.
Everyone will make
it. He likes the thing I made.
I love it. It's so good.
Oh, thanks, man.
And it's got so much heart and it's got some it's juicy and it's funny and it's got like emotions. Really, really good. It's good writing.
Oh man, that means the world for real. I don't, it's weird. Like the last several months have been just such a blur that I'm like, I don't know like what to say, but I am really proud of myself but I'm really, I guess part of it was like, I had the idea kicking around for like a year, but sort of a long story as to how it came to be. But I've just been wanting to write and illustrate forever, like many, many illustrators that, we are little kids. We have picture books. It's like, it's everything. Picture books are everything. And just telling a story, especially as just as a human being. And they're like these portals to another world, and illustration as a profession is so powerful. We can literally create realities that don't exist yet, that should exist, that don't for stupid reasons, injustice, all that jazz. But I think it's just always been such a powerful medium. And so I think I put it on this ginormous pedestal.
Yes.
And then you go back to being a serious artist. I was like, well, I think picture books are my route. Obviously I didn't even question it, but as I tried to write them and develop my voice for them, it got really unfun. And then I had to put it away. And then I took some classes and I was getting closer to the voice, but I was still making things really complicated. Honestly, I feel like at one point I was like, I have 2 kids. I was like, I feel like writing and illustrating a picture book. I think I'd rather, I think having another human child, giving birth to another human child might be easier than doing this. I swear to God. I was like, this feels so impossible for some reason. And I think it felt impossible because I was forcing a voice that I wasn't meant to have yet. I wasn't listening to my voice, I guess. I was trying to fit me and this voice I didn't know what was yet into a shape, and it wasn't fitting. And so I was about 5 years into trying to figure that out. Meanwhile, I was illustrating everyone else's books, which I am so grateful for. And I've learned so much. I was able to illustrate a Roald Dahl book, and that was insane. And so many wonderful opportunities, but at the same time, as you know, the publishing industry, there's lots of, you don't have a lot of autonomy sometimes. Yeah. And as I've been doing this for a long time, I'm just wanting more and more of my weirdness to come out. because it gets harder and harder to like do it over and over again unless more of you is in that thing. So basically, long story short, it's already long, too late. I'm taking this class, or I'm taking classes. I'm trying, I'm hitting my head against the wall. I'm learning things. I'm falling. I'm getting up, blah, blah, blah. And then my agent, Lila, she was teaching this class called Arty Book Pitch. And it was more like nonfiction, maybe some memoir, graphic memoir, whatever, but not like a traditional picture book.
Yeah.
And something told me, I was like, oh, God, you know, if I take this class, I'm like sort of feeling like it's going to derail this path I've been on. And I'm like fitting this in on top of client work, being a mom, all this other stuff that we juggle. So as we all know, that kind of stuff can just lead to like a bunch of open-ended trails that never finish.
Yeah.
So I was like, is this just going to be another one of those things? But I just had this feeling. And I was like, I have been posting on Instagram forever. And I've always heard like, I've gotten some really nice comments over the years of like, you really explain how you feel so well. And like what you say resonates with me. I realized I was like posting a picture and then my caption would literally have nothing to do with the picture, but they were two separate statements. I mean, it would be a segue.
Yeah.
But, and I was like, how can I figure out, like, I can write, you know, imposter syndrome times 1,000. But I was like, I've written over 2,500 Instagram posts. Most of them are very personal. Why can't I figure this out? So I took the class because I had a feeling that I could maybe explore that voice. And then I got the idea for this like love letter to horses. We had to submit our ideas. I had a few ideas kicking around, but I didn't love them enough. And I was really frustrated. I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't love this enough. I know I'm going to get sick of this. And I was texting a friend, like, I don't know what the hell to submit for my idea. I was kind of venting and I found this like horse meme that was like perfectly expressing how I felt. And I sent it. And I was sitting on the floor, like just hanging out with my husband. He was like playing a video game and I was just like, blah, blah, blah. I was just totally like in a weird mood. And then it hit me. I was like, why the F am I not? Oh, I can. Cool. Okay. Why the fuck am I not doing a book about how much I've loved horses? Because I've always kind of pushed that away. I was watching I was being like I was like watching my husband play video games because I needed to not like think.
Yeah.
And I was
what was he playing?
It's so boring to watch other people play video games. I don't even know. Some Mario game.
Sophie does it, actually.
Yeah, like
from time to time.
But in a way, it's like comforting because I don't play video games, but I like the graphics and I like the vibe. But anyway, so I was
Speaking of memes, though, I've heard people say that there's nothing more like in power than the person watching the person play. They don't even have to play. They can just be like, go over there. Oh, you should. Why don't you go over there?
That's what I do. It's like backseat driver.
Yeah, it is. It's like being the monarch in the back seat.
It's very
like, go that way.
Voyeur.
It's funny. Yeah.
I was voyeuring. I was complaining. I sent a meme of a horse that perfectly explained my frustration. And then now I can't repeat it. I was like, it just hit me. I was like, why am I like not doing a book about horses? And I guess it seemed obvious to me. If you look at my work, I'm not like drawing horses all the time or anything like that. They pop up every now and then.
Yeah.
But I kind of shy away from labels. I'm not like I'm a this person. I'm a that person. And I think growing up, I loved them so much and they were this weird identity to me, but I wouldn't own that identity, if that makes sense. It was like this current, like running through my existence, but it was internal. It wasn't like this external thing. But anyway, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to just do a love letter to horses. And it felt really good. And then this is where I was like, oh, wow, you have been forcing it this whole time, the past 5 years, because then what happened was so cool. All of a sudden, I just had the book sort of wrote itself. And then I know that sounds so cliche when people say that, but it was like, whoa, it just kind of exploded with all these childhood memories of horse related, whether it was like with my grandmother or just my obsession, movies, just the horses that I would draw.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a lot from my childhood, but it was interesting to see this like through line.
Yeah.
And so it just felt so good to feel like, oh, wow, I know what I'm going to write about. I know how I'm going to write it because it's just me. So I did the pitch and everyone really liked it. And that was cool and everything. But then I kind of just fell flat and I ran out of steam. It just felt like something else was missing. And I sent it to a friend who's a writer, and she had suggested a main character and like a graphic novel memoir. And I was like, ugh, main character, I don't know. And so basically I kind of put that aside, but I was still working on the idea and developing it. But I kind of put this thing on like, this isn't going away. I'm going to show up for it and it's going to show up for me, but we are not perfect for each other yet, but we're like still going to be friends. And I'm going to nibble away at this, even if it's like while I'm walking my dog. If that's all I have time for, that's all I have time for.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. I was thinking about my son who's 10, and I was like, man, 10 is such a weird, cool age. Like it's so like coming of age and like, you're at this precipice.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I wonder what I was like when I was 10. And then I was like, oh my God, what year was it? Because I love the 80s and 70s. And I was like, oh my God, it was 1984. And I looked up all the things that came out, and it was like Never Ending Story, the Purple Rain Prince album, Chicken McNuggets, like all these things that are basically my personality. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm the main character. I'm 10 in this story. And then it was over. I was like, oh shit, I know what I have to do now. I know the story I want to tell. I know how I'm going to tell it. And then it was just a matter of me showing up every day and working on it without that external pressure of a client deadline. So I had to create that whole environment for myself because I know that's what I need to get things done.
Yep.
So I linked up with a local printer, a risograph printer, because I wanted that like neon pink for the 80s vibe.
Yep.
And then I also thought, well, the Icon Conference is coming up. I've been sort of slow. I'd like to shift the ship of my career into more of this kind of work. And this would be a great opportunity. If I bring the zine with me, I can hand it out to people. I can sell it. And so it just provided this environment for me to make it my job, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to finish it, the Horse Girl zine is basically, for me, I've never been able to do something like that before. And it felt really out of reach like 2 years ago. I'm not going to lie. Like just felt impossible.
Yeah. That was one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've heard you talk about that and I deeply relate to that. That is the mental game of, I think about my particular struggle with getting myself to do anything, mainly through the lens of ADHD. But I think whoever you are, wherever you are, creative people have these different challenges. Everyone has challenges on self-motivation. And I've thought about how,
for sure,
for me, it's never about, could I come up with ideas, or, do I have the skill or whatever. The reason that my to-do list intimidates me, the reason my projects intimidate me is because it's never about, I was going to write a comic about this. It's never about the things on there.
No,
it's about
not.
How do there's another to do in front of that, which is getting myself to do it. The hardest opponent to beat, the one that's beat me so many times. I don't know how this guy works. He's so tricky. He gets me so far off course before I even know what the hell's going on.
I know.
And so every single time I look at my to-do list, I'm like, shit, how am I gonna do it this time? How am I gonna get this guy?
And you do it.
And I do it.
I've done pretty good. That guy. You've done great.
Woo, he is.
You're doing
tough.
it.
I'm doing it sometimes. Half the time I am. The times I figured it out, woo, I can do it.
Do you procrastinate work?
Yeah.
I feel like I do that a lot, and it is so effective. But then I still have to face the music at the end of the day and do that thing that I've procrastinated away.
Yeah. So I want to get into some of those things that you did to help yourself motivate in a minute. But first, could we go somewhere else?
Let's go.
I want to talk about, that's a good overview of this project. I think that there's a million good takeaways in terms of there's so many good things there. But one of them was the idea of, so the thing at the start that kind of segued into this was you talking about goofy artists. Yeah. And I was thinking about, there was two prompts that came to mind after I read your zine. One, maybe we'll go at the end, but the first one is, there's a moment in it where the past you as a 10-year-old and current you meet up, and she's like, past you is proud that you didn't let go of being a horse girl. And I thought, okay, I know there are things that 10-year-old me would be super psyched on that I did and that I kept with. But I also instantly thought, what would 10-year-old me be disappointed in? What would 10-year-old me be like, that's not really you? And I know that's kind of harsh.
It is so hard to think about.
But the first thing that came to mind for me was, and people won't believe this because in our world, design world, illustration world, I'm extremely goofy. But the first thing that came to mind was he would be like, dude, why are you so serious all the time? Like, what the hell?
I relate to this so much. I can't even, I'm like, it's like a weird combo of traits to be, it's like you don't take yourself too seriously, but you take what you do with the seriousness of every amoeba cell in your body. Like, it's like, I am obsessed with making things and I think about it all the time. I feel like the other person, if there was the other voices in my head, they'd be like, girl, you need to chill. Like, it's like, can you think about other things and do other, dude. You need to dial it back a little bit because it just it sort of could maybe gobble things up. It's a little bit of a gobbler. It gobbles a little bit of joy, even though I get so much joy from making and creating. The longer I do it, it's kind of like it feels a little imbalanced.
It's consuming.
But I don't know how else to be. It's very consuming. It's very consuming. And I totally relate to that. And I think my 10-year-old would be like, go eat a chicken McNugget and watch some MTV, just chill out.
But I love that could be the call to action at the end. That's what go watch MTV, eat some chicken McNuggets. You'll be fine. And I think, I totally relate to that. And then I just think, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just want to say, I'm really glad you brought the growing up part up because I think I do want to, how do I say this? Not that I don't want people to think, oh, it's about horses and it's, My Pretty Pony and Pink and all that. Yeah. And I am part of doing this project is embracing that and going, that's part of who I am. What of it? It's powerful. It's amazing. I don't care what you think. Because it's always been sort of in a way dismissed, oh, unicorns. And it's they were everything for a second and then they weren't again and then blah, blah, blah. But they're magical. But my point is the book is about that, but it's also sort of not. It's really, horses can be anything. It's more about the fear of growing up, the fear of what you think you'll become. It's about being that 10-year-old. And I remember just thinking adults seemed a 20-year-old seemed so old. Mm-hmm. They seemed so old to me. I could not distinguish someone that was 20 from like 40. Like they all looked the same, seemed the same. My childhood was very chaotic. There was a lot of great things about it, but there was a lot of not so great things. And just adults in my life, you just absorb their behavior. They set the tone for just how you're framing things in the world. And so, if I were to do a book version of this, I would definitely want to dive a little deeper into that. And also just like how you perceive yourself with, in the 80s, if you weren't skinny, you were fat. And there was literally no in between. And I struggled with weight. I got teased, just certain things like that. And so part of you in a way does want to grow up because you feel like you'll get a sense of control. You'll get more control and you'll be able to like defeat the bullies or whatever. But we all know that's not really true now. So you kind of resort to your 10-year-old in a way, like, oh, honey, that was an illusion, there's no control. But yeah, I mean, it's about growing up, a lot of it, and just not wanting to, and also preserving that part of you, because I think a lot of people feel like when they grow up, they have to put a lot of who they are like aside to fit in and to function in society. And that makes me really sad. It makes me kind of angry. It makes me want to, like scream from the top of a mountain, like, you don't have to do this. Like, like attray you, like say my name, it's just like, no, just be who you are and love the things you love and don't ever let them go. Like hold on to them for like dear life, because it might save you sometimes,
I think one of the things that I try to remember is that when I'm feeling the feeling of, I wish I could put this on a billboard. I wish I could that's great creative energy. Like that's what to write a story about. And so that feeling of like, I want to go get on a mountain and be like, you don't have to do this. Like, okay, we'll tell that story. And why do you feel that way? Like what happened? What happened in your life that made you feel that way? Yeah. And the plot of it too. Like what actually happened. There's so much good stuff here, because I think the through line of everything we're talking about is this image and masking and trying to be something you're not, trying to. And the thing that I think is really interesting is, so I never get tired of the hero's journey for some reason. I just like frameworks. I like stories, whatever. I like all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I think is just a really good image is in the hero's journey. Like I think most myths and stories they're really like psychological journeys. You can read them as external things, or you can read them as internal things. And most of the idea of the hero journey is you go away from home and then you return home. And so psychologically, it's about the necessary journey of trying to be something you're currently not, to find out what you really are.
No, it's so true.
You just go through it over and over. Yep. And I thought, as you were saying that, I thought, you going through this forcing it period, a lot of artists, they come out the other side. And it reminds me of the metaphor, the dad metaphor I have is it's like a slingshot. Like if you do a slingshot and it flings this thing far into the distance and you say, well, what's the thing that mattered? Like, when did it really happen? You'd say, when I let go. And you're like, but it was the tension of pulling it back. Like, and so that forcing that you did, the reason I bring that up is because if I'm in the listener's shoes and I think about myself hearing this 15 years ago, I would be even now I'm thinking the goofy thing of like, why can't I let my goofiness out in my books more? Some of my books have some goofiness for sure. The Pizza Book and Invisible Things both have goofiness. Yeah. But I could go, I'm so much weirder than that. I promise you. I'm so much weirder. And I'm trying to figure out like, how do I get that into a book? So I can hear that. But then I thought that no, like the forcing it is part of it, because it pushes you, it grows you, it shows you what you're not, and that helps you understand
it's
like
so
who you
true.
are.
It's like context, tension and context, because if there's no tension, I remember my high school art teacher, she was like, where's the tension? It's like, I'm like, well, I worked at a greeting card company for 13 years. There's literally no tension in any of my work. It's just like, was trained to not have tension.
Can we get rid of the tension? Hallmark does not want the tension. Like,
they don't
get it out of there. This isn't a story. Like,
no greeting card. I mean, that's not what we're selling. We're selling like happy vibes.
Happy ending. Not that you don't start with the problem. Like, here's the conflict of the card that I wanted to get in there.
But tension.
So you're old. Okay, let's deal with it. It sucks. Well,
actually,
but they have the joke ones, I guess. But,
actually, the humor ones do have tension.
True.
So because to be funny, you have to bounce. I feel like tension makes things, like it just does. Yeah. And I think too, like if you were a blob and you were just hanging out with other blobs and everything was kosher all the time, what would develop? Like literally nothing. Yeah. Just, you would all just be blobs, like hanging out and blobbing against each other, and your blobs would be blobbing and nothing would form. Yeah,
it's true. It's like way back in the past when it was just like one-celled organism blobbing around. Like that the more complex it gets, the more interesting it gets, the more you got to have some tension and conflict.
You bring in a really spiky cell. Now we're talking.
Boom. Like now I got the booba and the what's the other one? Do you know this thing? What is it called?
This is a crazy conversation.
Do you know that thing? Kiki and booba? No. You don't know this? Go look that up and do your take the afternoon off. I can't believe you haven't heard this because it just feels like something
maybe I have. I'm really bad at
it's like a blob and then like a spiky shape. Okay. And it's basically it's like a personality test. It's like you can say like, oh, which one do I like? Which one feels more me? It's basically like a little blob.
I'm both.
And then like a
That's the problem.
Spiky thing.
I'm neither. I'm gonna Kiki and Booba.
Booba.
But here's
Bob. Okay. I don't know, something like that.
Like
Bouba. That's
okay.
what it is.
Well, but I'm neither one of those, I think, and that's been something my whole life. I'm never one thing and I'm never the other. I'm literally always fucking in between things.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some friends who feel the same way, and it makes things complicated,
especially as an artist. And I definitely relate to that for sure.
And I think it's more common than not, actually. But I think we're just sort of trained to think, well, I'm this and I'm that. But true. I'm like, I don't, but okay.
I get,
Kiki and Booba.
Go check it out. It's interesting.
I will check.
It's interesting to me, especially because kind of gets into, there's a lot of that kind of thing in Invisible Things where you're trying to personify abstraction. So part of it is part of that test is about, I can't remember it exactly, but it's something like categorizing flavors as either smooth or spiky, like these synesthetic leaps. And what happens is these things that are kind of nonsensical, but when they categorize in this way, if you ask 100 people, is that sound spiky or smooth? They'll answer pretty consistently.
Okay.
And so it's like the connection between feeling and shape and the connections of the senses, anyway.
Have you watched that movie Problemista yet?
No, I haven't even heard of it. No.
Oh my God. I can't stop thinking about it.
What is it?
The reason why I bring it up is because he has also a stand-up show, and I think it's called, I'm gonna butcher this. I'm really bad at remembering certain things, but it's about shapes. But basically, it's Julio Torres, but the movie is autobiographical, and he's an artist. But did you see Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, so do you know the the perspective on that, just kind of like a very visual, like ADHD person, like making a film and how they perceive the world, and like how you're making me think about, because he, in the show that he has also called there's like 3 things that he has out. There's like the stand-up, and then there's Phantasma. But he does this whole bit about the letter. He does this whole bit about the letter Q. He does this whole bit about the alphabet and like their personalities.
Okay.
And like, it's so in between, like how he is picking up on senses and how things are explained, and like how a sound would look visually. Like the way that everything you're saying is very much like how this person's brain works to me. But Q, it was so good.
What did he say about Q?
He just, I don't want to give anything away.
Right, okay.
And I'm going to butcher it and do a horrible job. So I don't want to like ruin it, but just, I'll try to
I did an episode and I think a talk once about how, because the personalities with letters or numbers is a recognized type of synesthesia.
Yes.
And I think it's one of the only ones that I genuinely have. And I did a talk about, not a talk about it, but I mentioned it in a talk as like an example of something, as a joke of like, I got in advanced math later. Like if I had as much time as and I'm not good at it, I always talk about math and numbers are like in the back room of my brain. Mm-hmm. I can get them, but it's like, I have to like, it's not easy. And so, but especially like times tables were a nightmare, because the times tables, I would be like, that all the numbers had personalities. They genuinely do. And so I'd be literally find myself thinking about like, 7 and 4. Shit. Oh man. They're in the same room. Don't go there. Good
Don't
Lord.
get them. Don't get those two together.
Don't get them started.
But why is 8 like just so reliable and like a big bear hug? Like I feel like 8 would give you like a bear hug.
See, and that's exactly. It's the smooth whole, like it's like wholeness times 2. That's why it's 2 circles. Like, come on. I totally agree. And I want to go back to something, but it's escaping me now.
We are so far out on a limb right now. We are so out.
It makes me very happy. Makes me very, okay. It's the hero's journey thing. It makes me very happy because it's right what we're talking about, which is this thing of, putting yourself into the work in a way that it's not forced, getting out of your way. And I feel like the hero's journey thing, I just wanted to add one little bit, was instead of worrying about whether you're at home in yourself or are you currently on a journey out trying to be something else, I think looking back in the moment, I could never know which one I was in.
No way.
But you could always be trying to make progress towards yourself. And sometimes that progress looked like,
I think so,
getting away. And sometimes it actually like was returning. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I feel like every time I make art, like I did this quick little zine to get like a sense of satisfaction. I can't say enough about zines. I will talk about them all day, and the power of like, but I end it with, I make things so I can know myself, and like just the idea of getting lost in your work to be found. And it sounds corny or whatever, but it's just kind of like, that's kind of what I do, like over and over again, like a lot of people. And just, it's weird. It's like, I know myself, but then I also kind of don't, I of course I know myself, but then I'm like, well, I don't know who this fucking person is. Honestly, exactly. I do and I don't. And I'm becoming more at peace with that. It used to make me feel uncomfortable and like think that there was something wrong with me because of that. And then now the older I get, and I think there's more conversations centered around the like normalizing that, especially as a creative person, which I love. Yeah. I feel like I'm okay with that. And I think it's honestly helped me become more of myself by, now I feel like this is so meta, but I feel like I've become more myself by being okay with sort of knowing who I am and not knowing.
Yeah. I totally relate.
That hurt my brain.
I totally relate. And I think that I genuinely think that, that's really what the zine is about. There's two pieces for me that really, that I wanted to talk about. One was that there's a lot about image in there, I think. For instance, this notion of, can you be a horse girl if you don't own a horse? And it reminded me of like, how many albums do you have to have memorized to wear the t-shirt of the band?
Yeah.
You know? And what does it, and that right there is like you can't trust your identity. You can't trust that you love this thing because of how other people may criticize you.
Well, and then also it sort of becomes like this pissing contest. Like, well, I like horses more.
Yes.
Like when I was creating the zine, I was like, do I love them enough? Like, I know I love them and they're part of like the fiber of my being. Like, I swear to God, when I look at horses, I see myself. And I know that sounds so weird to say.
Thank you for saying that.
I can't believe that I just said that out loud.
That. Oh my, the podcast just got 10 times better because you said that.
But that's
Keep talking about that, please.
It's just a weird thing to say, but I think because when you love something so much when you're a kid, you just project so much on the thing that you love. Like the thing you love sort of becomes your home. And I think too, I'm glad I didn't own a horse or like, because I think, the idea of it became more important to me than the thing itself. Like I lived in the idea of the thing and that became my home when things didn't feel safe or I wasn't comfortable. And I think that's what I want to clear the air about this little zine, because I think it's easy to sort of write it off like, oh, pink and purple and horses. Bleh. Yeah. And I want to be like, oh no, hold on a minute, because it really is so, and the people that get it, they get it. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you getting it. It makes me feel really good and seen. And I've just enjoyed so much like the DMs, and when we're tabling at events, like people will just look at it and like, they like, I see this like sea change on their face of just like the shift. And I'm like, and then we just like have these sweaty, intense conversations about like, and it feels like so galvanizing to me. Like, I feel like, okay, I'm not a joiner and I've never been a club person, but like, whatever this is, I'm in. Like, this feels so real and good to me. And again, it's about horses, but it's not. It's like a deeper thing. It's like a mentality, I guess, like a nerdy, like, because I don't think it was like, I think horses are sort of perceived as feminine, but I don't know how to explain it, but they're like really strong. They're really strong and they're really but they're also very vulnerable, you know, and they break something in a certain way. You know, there's that cliche, like, oh, got to put her down, you know. Yeah. They are hard workers, but they're also like really free. There's just a lot about them as an animal that, like, I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the world that animals are just so great. Like animals in general are just they're like everyday magic to me. Like they're so wonderful. Same. They're amazing. I love them so much. And so, yeah, I think part of it is that too, but I'm going to stop talking now because I could just go on and on.
You have the floor if you want to keep going.
But I feel like words are just going to start coming out of my mouth and it's going to be like mushy and what's not so really
good though. Like, well, you can. Do you have more?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll see.
I'm going to take a break.
Change your mind. Take a little break.
You talk now.
Okay. I feel like I could do a whole series on animals. I just had a conversation with Julian Glander, and we were talking a lot about ducks because he has pet ducks. And
oh my God.
And the first time I talked to him, we did like a pre-talk, and I was like geeking out about animals, and my wife had listened to it and was like laughing at me. And she's like, you're like a 5-year-old kid. I'm like, animals, man. And you just did this.
For real. Okay, I have to show you something. And I don't want to make
yeah.
I don't want to make too much noise.
Okay.
But like this might be a little bit before your time, but I got this. This was like pre-internet. It's called Illustrated Wildlife Treasury.
I don't think I've seen that. It looks great. I love the box.
You would sign up for it, and then every month you would get a pack of cards. Oh, look, of course I pull out a donkey. You would get a pack of cards with a picture and like stats on the animal, and then like coloring. Like you would get stuff, and it was like the coolest thing ever to me. It doesn't look very cool.
It's like I'm showing you. Old school subscription box.
Totally.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and you got the box that you would collect, and but I loved it, and like I would watch National Geographic. Now I cannot watch any of that. Really? It makes me too sad.
Too violent.
I can't.
Yeah. There's a lot of bad news around animals too. Just
I can't handle it. Yeah. Being a wild animal is so hard. Like it's so hard. Like we think we have problems.
I do feel that.
We think we have problems.
It's so funny to hear you say that. Those two things, hearing you say it is so funny because it's externalizing feelings and thoughts that I have that I'm, like the only way I can explain what I mean is I heard a comedian on a podcast talking about how such a huge part of knowing what your material is just being around other comics that are good at what they do, because your best stuff is stuff that you're so close to that you can't even see what's funny about it.
Totally.
You saying how hard it is to be a wild animal, and you said it like you've done it. That right there, I think this all the time. I'm like looking at animals thinking, shit, God, your life is hard.
When you think about it, I learned
think about that.
No, it's true. It's like, I'm so glad you appreciate that.
I don't have to be a squirrel today.
Woo, no, I was just going to say,
my gosh.
Did you hear that thing about how squirrels don't even find, like they find like 30% of the nuts they bury or something.
I've heard that,
something so disappointing.
A terrible stat. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like you're just literally spending all your time.
I mean, it's just kind of like throwing out 70% of your grogroceries, which
basically
lots of people do.
Okay, I'm dying. This is so fun.
It's true. It's true.
Oh my God. It's
so. Go ahead.
Oh, no, nothing. I'm good.
I'm done. I was going to say about the horse thing. I was thinking about, I'm so passionate about getting every creator writing because I think it is the key.
I'm sorry. I'm crying, dude. I'm like trying to hold in my laughter. I just can't. I'm just thinking about these squirrels now, and I hate them so much sometimes because they're such jerks in our backyard.
Same.
But now I feel so sad. I'm sorry. All right, hold on.
Please. You don't need to move on. Let's just enjoy it.
I had to let that little bit extra.
Yes.
It was like I was holding it in because I wanted to keep up, but I just can't. I can't.
It's hilarious. Don't you feel it's so you saying that just made me realize how often I'm thinking that, which I know is not, I don't think people should comment about this because I want to know, do other people think that?
Oh,
or is it just me and you that are
no, they do.
This? Okay.
I am 100% certain that they do. I would put money on it because I think a lot of creatives love animals and also just have so much empathy for like every living thing.
Yeah.
So
me too.
I know we're not
even non-living things. That's the thing. I know I have the same thing.
Okay, please. I'm like Now I'm going to worry about my drinking cup over here.
I know, exactly. Like you're neglecting it. You haven't used it in an hour.
Here, let me take a sip.
Now it's feeling better about its purpose. There was one the other day where Sophie and I were dropping off something. I don't know if it was like something at Goodwill or something. And I just caught her like grieving for it. Aww. And I was like, it's not alive. You don't have to do that. But I can feel like that too sometimes.
We project. Yeah.
But that's the cool thing. I mean, that's the cool thing about, that's exactly what I was going to say about the horse thing, is the projecting element is where the symbolism comes from. That is, for sure. That right there is the juicy part. And what I was, getting into when I started getting serious again was this, was that I'm always encouraging creative people to write, myself included. It's really hard for me to get myself to write, but I write pretty frequently. But even so, when I really get into the groove of writing, I'm like, oh, I haven't done this in a long time. Why did I not get there? And one of the encouragements I have, because I think a lot of creative people, if you don't consider yourself a writer, which is most creatives, some obviously there are writers, but then like musicians, actors, we're so in the abstraction, in the image and the feeling of it, that the specificity, it's similar to what I think you're saying about like the label, like
yes,
it feels difficult to do that. Yeah,
it does. And I think I so agree with what you're saying as far as like, I mean, I was in a band for 6 years and I would never call myself a musician.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
I wouldn't. And I still wouldn't. Okay. I learned like by myself, and I don't read music. I would play by ear and whatever. And
that doesn't disqualify you. Again, you're going right back to that thing of, I'm not a horse girl because I didn't own a horse.
I know. It's stupid. I mean, maybe somebody else could say I was, but I just, it's just not something especially, I don't know how, like musicians to me, like the people that could like drink like a bottle of vodka and then go up on not that that's a good idea, but just like pure, like there's people that are they don't forget notes. They just like, we saw Vampire Weekend like a month ago. And at the end of the encore, they got back up on stage. And this is a band that I think people either love or hate. I
was a fan from the beginning. I haven't listened to their new album, but
their new album is so good.
The Modern Vampires is like one of my all-time favorite albums.
Yes, it's a go-to, and the first two, and then this one is such a kind of throwback to that, but like mixed with like new stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, like they got back up on stage, and this band is like perceived as like indie kind of like cool guy, blah blah blah. But if you really appreciate them, that's not really who they are.
Yeah.
Like fratty or whatever, but they got up and they were like, okay, we're taking requests from literally anyone would raise their hand or like put their phone up, and they were doing Sweet Carol. They were doing all the annoying wedding songs and like joking, and like they were trying to just play the first couple bars of it and laughing. They would stop in the middle, and every time they did it, at the end they go, apologies to Stevie Wonder, apologies to blah blah blah, and it was so great. But my husband and I were just blown away by their musicianship and how good you have to be to just do that in front of a zillion people and like not even maybe know the song that much, but just kind of pick up on the essence of it and then just rip it out like right there in real time. So I guess that's what I'm like. I'm not a musician.
But I think, I honestly feel like being a musician can mean so many different things. And there are people that are performing musicians, and then there are people that are recording musicians. That I know people that have written some of my favorite songs of all time that have a hard time learning their own songs to play in front of people. Like,
I'm the opposite. I feel like we always wrote our own, and it's like, I don't call myself a writer per se, but I wrote little pop songs with my friends, and I've been writing all my life, and I've written 2,500 Instagram posts. That makes me
in your resume.
I think I'm saying that number just because it was something I said to myself to go, will you shut up about this imposter syndrome? Like, you've written a lot of stuff over the years, including that, which can be maybe valued or not valued by other people. But it was my time and it was my sincere thoughts. So I had to put it in there for my own personal resume to kind of boost myself up, to be like, you can do this, like you've been doing it.
And I think that there's something, I think we could have a looser relationship with the labels and the packaging, because I think the artists that do really well, if you think about, just to take Vampire Weekend, for example, I think a lot about the mismatch thing. Like, so a lot of pop or like mainstream stuff, the packaging and the essence of it are the same. So it's like what you see is what you get. Whereas a lot of alternative stuff is like what you see is the opposite of what you're going to get. And so like my example I always say is The Cure, but The Cure is like, sounds like it's dancing, but it's actually really sad. Or Flaming Lips sounds like drug music. He didn't do drugs like most of his life and was almost anti-drugs and religion. And so, but that's interesting. And the same goes for Vampire Weekend, where they're doing this like, oh, we're like frat guys, but they're doing it for a different reason. And they're using the symbolism of it to say something, Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And so anyway,
go ahead. It's like, I guess, prep school. I don't know. I feel like, when I listen to their music, they're influenced by so many different genres. And then I learned like a weird fun fact, the Ezra guy, the lead singer, he's like they're not married, but Rashida Jones is his boo. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. Pretty wild. I love learning weird pop culture stuff
just to
like
brag,
that.
I had Rostam on the show. He was one of the only musicians I've had on the show.
I remember that.
That was like one of the coolest things that ever happened to me.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So anyway, I am a fan, a big fan. But the thing I've been trying to tell you, and I can't get it out, is the horses. What I was going to say was that I just blabbed in 10 other different directions. And I was going to say that when I encourage, people that don't see them, creatives that don't see them, are intimidated by writing, is start with the symbols and then trust yourself. That there is meaning behind that. And that as you make it, you find it. And it seems like you had a lot of realizations of like, what are horses about for you?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, doing this, I can't even say how cathartic it was about just like healing. We're all basically kids still. We're the same people inside that we were. We're not, I don't want to say the same. We have all of those versions inside of us at all times. I feel like.
True.
But like, I just learned a lot about myself and just, okay, well, what is it about these creatures that has just compelled me all these years and sort of kept this little flicker going in me, this little spark that made me feel like when I was looking at them, thinking about them, drawing them, that I felt like myself.
Yeah.
And the writing thing, I just want to say one quick thing about like Lynda Barry and Anne Lamott, like Bird by Bird, and Lynda Barry, like Making Comics, those two books. I can't say enough about how both of these artists talk about that it's just our human right as people, like as human beings, to write and make pictures, and that should not be reserved for the elite or the special or the like, I think everyone is creative. I honestly do. I believe that with every fiber of my being. Yeah. And that it's just our right to do that and express ourselves, whether we're doing it just for ourselves or make, as a living, whatever. It's like a healthy part of being a human being. And so that really just kind of gave me permission to, well, I'm just exercising my right as a human being. Like I'm a cave woman right now, and I'm making marks on the wall. I'm drawing my pictures, and I'm just very, I had to strip it down to that really baseline. Like I'm doing this, and it's like I'm doing this because people have been doing this for as long as we've existed. So it's okay. I can do it.
Yeah.
And that really, really, really helped me. Yeah.
I love that thing. And that's exactly what I needed to hear when I first started doing anything related to writing was trust that it's not random. The things that you're drawn to, the things that light you up, it's speaking. If you're feeling it viscerally, it's because it's speaking a language that's going beyond words. It's not because couldn't put words to it. You can. That's the writing. You will be able to put words to it, but it'll be work. But there's so much. There will be. It's that a picture's worth 1,000 words, whatever it is. It's find those images. It's like the archetype thing of a horse. There was something about it that was supercharged for you. If like you talking about looking at horses and being like, man, yeah. Like that's so me. Funny. Yeah, look at me go. Like it's so good.
Look at my mane.
And it's so honest. Like it really like inspires me to think about it because I'm like, well, what? And I did. And that was the CTA, the call to adventure, the thing to do something with the conversation we're having. The one I came up with other than like, what would your past self be disappointed in? But but the other one was, what were the archetypes from childhood that you obsessed over? And I wanted to note that it took me a minute to think about this, to kind of, for anything to come up. And then a few things were coming up. Two for me were superheroes. I was obsessed with superheroes, obsessed with Marvel. And also I was really obsessed with, I wish I would have kept a little bit more. I've still seen a lot of Marvel, but I wish I would have kept some of that passion because a bunch of my favorite ones were turned into movies that nobody cared about when I was a kid. Like, so Deadpool and Black Panther and those two in particular, I was like, I didn't know much about them. I just had like a card with them and like a toy. I had one Deadpool toy and I was like, these guys are probably sweet.
They're the B-side of superheroes. You know what I mean?
Very much so. Yeah.
They're not like, they're a little more nuanced. Nuance, they like to say in every industry, it doesn't sell, whatever. Yeah. But I do think consumers are a little more sophisticated than people like to give them credit for. And I want to ask you so many questions, like what it was about superheroes that like, because there's so many different things about a thing, and it's like what aspects? Was it like that they were saving people? Was it the outfits? Did you just want to wear spandex, Andy?
I probably did. Honestly, the more slick that they looked, I like Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Black Panther. What I liked about them was that they were so like cool, slick. There was no like frills. Yeah. Like I don't know, it's just badass. And then, but as I was thinking about this, I thought it's probably something about the neurodivergent thing.
Totally.
Of like, I'm weird and maybe it's a superpower. Maybe it's a good thing that I'm a weirdo and I go to the school for mutants. Like that's probably what I was thinking. Like that, like why I need to go to that school. And then the other one is basically the same that came up later because I forgot about it, which is that's what's so good about this. The same thing happened to me. Like when as you started pulling that thread, you're like, oh shit, that was like a thing. It was there. Like Aliens was another one, like the 90s Aliens. I had like a sticker collection of these 90s Alien stickers that I got every time I went to Pizza Hut. And there was this certain
Pizza
line.
Hut. We were talking about Pizza Hut the other day. It's gone.
It was legendary.
It's like not a thing anymore.
But aliens are the same.
the restaurant's gone, not the actual, it's still around. But
The
so when you
old-
say
yeah,
90s, when you say 90s aliens, do you mean like the movie Alien or just
No,
like 90s
I mean like
aliens in general?
this-
Like any alien that was put out in the 90s?
people that are like listening to it on the podcast. I don't know if the video will ever see the light of day, but that alien, the green alien head,
The
with
Roswell alien.
like that, like like the images around that. And again,
X-Files.
neurodivergent. Like that's a funny thing. And I used to say, I thought my parents were aliens, my dad and my stepmom.
That's hilarious.
I
There's
thought-
a kid's book. There's a kid's book right
You know
there.
what I thought? I really thought this. I didn't think this, but I was like, I'm not going to rule out the possibility because and
It's
it was
not impossible.
I thought they have a device where
Oh my God, that's
when
so
I get out of bed, there's just like they have super technology where they can just instantly transform back while they're watching
back
TV.
to
So I'll never see
humans.
them. But I thought that. The funny part about that is that's a very common, not that exact version, but the feeling of being an alien is a very common thing in autism and ADHD and neurodivergent people. Yeah.
Because I literally feel like an alien.
People say
I say
the
that
time.
when I go pick up my kid from school. I go, here I go. I'm putting on my human suit. I'm going to go be a mom and pick up my kid and go, hello. And I literally feel outside of my body. Like I'm
me
like,
too. Yeah.
And it makes me want to do something weird just to like get it out. Like, I'm a fucking weirdo. I'm picking up my kid, but like,
I know this looks normal, but I'm telling you, I did.
My skin's flapping off. Oh, there's green. Let me cover.
Oh, yes.
Did you remember that show V?
It sounds familiar. What is that? I can't remember.
Oh my God. It was a show about aliens and I loved it.
I don't know.
And it was like aliens were invading the earth. The theme song was so dope too. It was like, wah, wah, wah. Oh, no, wait, that's X-Files. Never mind. That's X-Files. Wrong alien show. But like they were invading the earth, but they would like penetrating earth in like a very like sneaky way. And some of them would have like human suits and then it would start like flapping off and like they were like snake people.
I love snakes too, by the way. That was a huge one.
I gotta find this and I'll find the trailer and send it to you.
Because I don't think I know that. The last thing I want to tell you was my favorite part of the book or the zine. By the way, my first kids book started as a zine too. And I think zines are the freaking key to unlocking your creativity.
I honestly cannot like say it enough. Like I completely agree with that. And like, I just feel like they're a kind of medium that I think if you're in the commercial art industry, you're sort of conditioned to make this like product. Yeah. But as a creative person, it kind of goes against that. And if you're really wanting to hone like writing and illustrating or just like exploring an idea that doesn't live in like one moment, I just can't say enough about them. They've just been such a game changer for me. I collect them. I tell people about them that don't know about them. I was like a fangirl of them for a long time. And I thought I sort of fell outside of it. Like, oh, I'm not cool enough to make a zine. And I also just don't know what I would say. Like, I just didn't have that part of my creative brain developed yet. And so I was just like a fan. I think I bought a book. It was like Mark Todd and like Esther Pearl Watson had this zine called Unlovable. And then Mark Todd had this book, What You Mean, What's a Zine? And I was like, someday I'll make my own. And then I would just like buy it. And then I would just buy them. And then, it was like a couple of years ago, I was like, girl, you love zines. You want to write and illustrate. This is the key.
Yes.
And I think I remember Rebecca Green, like, I didn't know that your book was a zine first. I didn't know that.
Well, it's a different book, but it was the first one that it unlocked writing for me. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
What were you gonna say about Rebecca Green.
Oh, How to Make Friends with a Ghost, I think. That was a zine initially.
Yeah.
It like kind of a light bulb went off and I was like, just do that. If you do that, like things are going to happen. Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. If you just make your own, just make it and get your ideas out there.
To me, that is the key. I just did a thing on a past episode where the call to adventure was about like quit pitching stuff. Like for me, if I'm making a pitch, what I'm making is a pitch. I'm not making a book. I'm not making a good book idea. I'm thinking about what's a good pitch. And
yes,
so
and you're selling.
You're selling. And you're selling. It's about them. And that's why I did all these pitches and it didn't work. And I thought, if I make it a zine, then I'm actually making the thing that I want to make. Now I'm in the energy of the real thing. And it just, it's really
take us
powerful.
to church. Take us to church. Like it just like that is exactly why I was like, I'm not pitching this. I don't want to have this be a half thing. And it's also totally what you just said. Whenever I've tried to pitch things, it just messes me up. And not that there are a lot of creative people that are so good at walking that line and pitching, and it becomes a thing. And I just don't know if I haven't acquired that skill yet.
You can also pitch after the fact. Yes. You can pitch later. That's the other thing.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Just make it without the pressure of pitching and see how that feels. Because I honestly was like, well, I would like to make a book of this, but let me make the zine first and see if I enjoyed even making the zine. And then I can go from there. Because again, I think we like to glamorize and like put things on a pedestal. Like, I want to write an illustrated children's book, or I want to do this and do that. And then we actually, that is one bit of unsolicited advice right now as someone who's been making, art for a living for over 20 years. I feel crazy saying that out of my mouth, but like, before you put something on a pedestal, like just do it first and make sure you even like doing it. Like just do the thing.
I heard Jack Black on a podcast say this, and I'm sure maybe I've heard this somewhere else. Yeah, he's a major hero of mine, but I
love him.
The way he said it was so perfect that I thought, this is a thing that I want to remember for the rest of my life and embody. And it was what you just said, which is, he said, don't think about what you want to be. So don't think about, I want to be an actor. I want to be a children's book maker. I want to be this, that, and that other. Think about what you want to actually do.
Yeah. How does it look?
What do you want to do? Yeah. And then do that. And that's what the zine unlocks is do it. You want to tell stories for kids? Do it. You can do it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
There really isn't. Like, I just listened to that Working It Out with Mike Birbiglia.
Oh, yeah. It's probably my favorite show. I listen to that one. Yeah.
Did you listen to the Stephen Merchant one?
Yep.
And I feel like when I say this, it's going to sound mean, but at the end, he was like, because he just has like a musicality to his voice. And I'm like, nasally, just do it. Just fucking do it. But like, he was like, he said, I know people work all day and it's really hard. It's hard to squeeze in things, but if you really want to do something, you will find a way, and you have to stop using excuses. Yeah. He was like, just do it. And again, see, it sounded so mean, but I thought about that and I was like, well, that is so true, but why can't so many of us figure that out? Yeah. Like why? And I thought about it, and I think something I was able to finally do, I was able to do this zine finally because I realized the problem for me was like, I want to do too many things. And you talk about this a lot on your podcast, like honoring seasons. Yeah. For me, it's like, I want to do a lot of different things and I have this list, but I thought about it and I was like, okay, I think for me, what helped is like, I want to be respectful of all the things I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I want to pick the thing I want to do the most, and I want to respect it and honor it. And if I'm talking at a party and I'm like, I want to do this, but I can't, and I'm saying it over and over again, after a certain point, I don't even want to hear myself saying it. Same. It feels disrespectful and it sucks. Yeah. And I feel like I want to respect, if I love this thing as much as I say I do, then respect it and honor it and know your limitations and know you can't learn this, and this at the same time. You have to take this one thing and you have to take a risk and spend time on that one thing, and you have to invest in it. and that's respect. And so for me, that got me to, there's no excuse, but there is an excuse if you don't understand what's getting in your way and understand that for me, it was like, I need to be more respectful. That helped me, my mental cue of like, that triggered me. I was like, ooh, I don't like being disrespectful to anything. And so for me, I was like, ooh, by doing this over and over again and being stuck in this, I'm not respecting this thing that I say I love so much, this thing that I want to do. So I just said the same thing 3 different ways, like over and over again just now, but you know what I mean?
That's my whole podcast.
I think I just hear myself saying it and I'm just like, yes, keep doing that. Don't stop.
It's good though. Yeah. I like the angles because I think it helps it unlock and make sense. Cause sometimes those things that really do unlock something, it's hard to get at what is it that did that? Yeah, but I totally.
The excuses are just sort of the covering of what is underneath that's getting in the way. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, you have to get past that. The conscious level to the subconscious level of like what's actually going on there. But the thing that you talked about with seasons, there's a huge problem for me always. So I have figured it out momentarily. It's one of the reasons I talk about it on the show is because sometimes I've managed to figure it out, but it's a lifelong problem. And the way I used to think about getting over it was I used to think, okay, I've got all this creative food to cook. I want to make all of these dishes. Which am I going to put in the frying pan and which am I going to throw in the trash? Those are the 2 options. It's the only options. And the metaphor that helped me figure it out was, no, some are going to go on the back burner. Some are going to go in the crock pot. But the front burner, I can only there's only one front burner.
I love that metaphor so much.
And it really helps me. And it also helped me to understand, learning tons about ADHD, learning that there's an object permanence issue. So like out of sight, out of mind. So, and it
I know I have it.
Time. I'm not diagnosing you, but there's a thing of there's only 2 times. There's only now or never. That's it. There's only now or never. So if I'm not doing all of these things now, I'm never doing any of them. And
it's true.
Helps me.
It's how. Yeah. I mean, God, I was tested for it. They said I didn't have it, but they were like, on paper or talking with you, you have it. But like, I think I'm just like high, like I'm just used to functioning
high masking.
Now.
One of the things they say about it is all neurodivergence is the further you go in your life, the harder it is to test for it because you adapt. You have all these adaptations.
Yeah,
and then,
I do.
Yeah.
Everything you've said, and you told me one time,
talked about it.
You're like,
I don't go around telling people that. You're one of the only people I've said, have you ever thought about that? Because you do have a lot of the ADHD energy.
It made me feel better.
It's not appropriate.
I'm sorry.
People shouldn't do that. So I'm sorry.
I don't want to derail. No. We're friends, and you were like very respectful about it, and it wasn't, and I feel like I'm derailing. I am hearing what you're saying, but you know what? See, I have ADHD. I'm sorry.
It's part of the theme. Go ahead. I was just going to say that. Oh
my God.
I was just going to say that I wanted to make sure I said this, that my favorite part of the zine, and it's tons of really funny things. I loved the whole thing with the past you, current you. All of that was very powerful. It also made me think like, oh man, there's like cinematic things that you can do on a page that I never let myself do. But these are the ways I think. Like I feel like the stories I like and the ones that kind of, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We don't have time for that. I'm going to say this.
No, you can't do that.
I was going to say, like, I think a lot of the things the kind of things I want to do are like things like that happen in like Bluey is a good example. I don't know if your kid's probably too old for Bluey.
I need to see this show because everyone keeps talking about it.
It's amazing. It's great. And it's kind of like for a long time in picture books, I was like, well, I can't tell the stories I want to tell because people don't tell these kind of stories in picture books. And then Bluey did that basically in kids media. And I was like, oh, I can do it. I just have to figure out how. And you were doing this cinematic thing in the zine.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
what page?
No. I'm going to tell you a specific page, but the part where your 10-year-old self builds this time machine, goes to see future you, everything about the scenes, and it's also silent. It just feels like
I did that on purpose.
In a movie.
Did that. I did that because I am a movie nerd. I'm bad at remembering like directors, and I'm not like an asshole film lover. Like, well, actually, blah blah blah. But I really appreciate the medium. Like, like TV, really well done TV shows. Like my partner and I watch a lot of TV, and I love the parts in a movie. Now I understand what you're saying. The parts where it felt like dialogue was going to take away from the feeling that I wanted people to feel.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was like right away, I knew that was what I wanted to do because I started getting into the dialogue and I was like, ugh, I don't like the way this is. And that was the other thing. I'm like, I was really proud of myself. I feel like I've grown as like a storyteller because I'm knowing now, like, oh my God, like I have grown. I've learned because right away I wanted to do that. But I don't think like 2 years ago, I would have not even known how to like deal with that. And
I recognize that feeling, like that thing of the more stuff I make in a certain direction, the more second nature it becomes.
It was like, I can't have I don't want any dialogue in this because I really want it to go silent and just you to read the body language and know that they met, but we don't necessarily need to know. I wanted there to be mystery because when you get into the specifics, it just takes out the magic of the moment.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun to do. And I'm so glad that you picked up on that. That's so great. Thank you.
Horse Girl could be a movie. I think there's something there. I think there's something there. But so I love that. And that was really inspiring me. But my favorite thing in the zine though was something that at first I couldn't even put my finger on. It's one of those things where you think about, that's why I like analysis of your own work and others, because you have to go from the visceral thing, just like with the horses, go from the visceral thing, then like pull at it till you like, oh, now there's like meat to it. Like I get like this thing. And so as I was thinking about like, what do I want to mention? And I thought the thing I think about over and over is there's a page that is so funny and embarrassing and vulnerable, and I feel it. And it's when the kids are pretending to be, your past you is pretending to be a horse.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's so like, you could easily scroll past that and not think about it. Like, or not pick up on it. But there's something about you. And I pretended, I think I told you this. I played pretend way later than what is normal. I'm telling you. And then even I pretended in my head all the way, I'll just defend myself, all the way to college, only to get myself to sleep. So at night I would go to sleep and I was like, I can't sleep. And I'd be like, all right, I'm going to come up with this whole thing. And I was just basically pretending. Like, and so, but I pretend, and I had a younger brother.
I think the inside of your brain should be a movie. How about that?
Oh man. You know what? Okay. I know this is, we're not doing a good job of staying on track, that's fine. But the Everything Everywhere All at Once, when I watched that, I told Sophie, I was like, and I didn't know he was ADHD. One of the guys is ADHD. I didn't know that, but I said, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. I literally feel like this, where there's a lyric, I'm doing this is heightened ADHD. Because as soon as we start like talking about it, it starts to like, I'm out of control with it.
Oh, I know. Are we both having a manic episode?
I think so. It happens. Exploding? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And
it's okay. Let's breathe.
But that thing of like I live a lot through the lens of like, am I in the best timeline? Like, am I in the best version of myself? Like, I think about that is kind of a thing that I like. live all the time. And it's a weight.
You know what? I feel that too, but I never really verbalized it like that. But I feel like I'm a lot of time living in like the troll timeline, the troll version of my timeline, like just grunting through shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I don't want to be. I want to be in the unicorn timeline. Yeah. But I check myself. I'm like, you are not. You're giving off troll energy like so hard right now, and you need to like art troll, like greasy art troll. I don't remember when I washed my hair and I got a lot to do. And I feel that a lot. And it doesn't feel very kind. I think, honestly, it doesn't feel very like we're doing our best. Yeah. We're trying. And I think even in our worst version of our timeline selves, I think we're still probably a lot cooler and more fun and caring than other people in their best timeline. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, you're just a very warm. I just feel like even on a bad day, you're still pretty great. So I wouldn't. Yeah.
Same to you. But I wanted to say that. I want to say I love that page. It captured that. And it really captures that thing of you're just starting to get self-conscious about, should I be pretending? And that's really sad. It's really sad. I know.
Yeah. There's a lot of really, 10 is like that age, right? It feels like there's so many stories from a 10. That was the other thing I want to share really quick about writing and just whoever's listening to this and they're trying to write or whatever, like we're trying that word. I've just heard the other day, like, don't say you're trying. Just people who are writing, exploring their voice. I want to say that it's going to look so different for everyone and that what we perceive as writing, it's just like, forget about all that. Yeah. Like, fucking forget it. Yeah. And what helped me so much was thinking about how my 10-year-old would write. Like, that helped me sort of get my voice, like, because I'm like a 50-year-old. I'm like older than middle age at this point. And I'm writing, but I'm like a weirdo little kid inside. But when it's coming out, it doesn't match. But helping me channel my 10-year-old, it just like smoothed out. I could relax. And if I was starting to write something that was like overcomplicated, I would be like, well, what would your 10-year-old say? How would your 10-year-old think of that? And it just helped. And whether it's accurate, like, oh, actually a 10-year-old really doesn't think like that. But I'm like, well, this 10-year-old does. Mm-hmm. So whatever, it works. It just really helped me. And so if you think about maybe some kind of device that you can channel that will get you to a creative place that feels more comfortable and less like strained or like you're trying too hard or you need to like temper a part of yourself to just kind of not get lost in the woods. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, that helped though a lot.
And that's a great action to end on is like create from your 10-year-old self. And I think it makes sense because I think the teenage years is kind of the hero's journey of leaving yourself. That's where you really start to feel like you're losing yourself. You're trying to be something else. You're trying to figure out how to be that. And I think that that's such a good prompt to get back into the timeless part of yourself, the part of you that maybe hasn't changed. Some of the changes are good, some of them are bad, whatever, but that part and creating from there, like I think that's really good.
For sure.
Thanks.
You're so good at this.
Hey, I'm just having a blast. And I hope, I'm thinking, the only thing I'm thinking is, man, the editing on this thing, I've just gone out of control.
I'm sorry.
When I talk to somebody like you and we both have this energy, I can get, it just riles me up and then it's out of control. But, I'm trying to get comfortable with it,
It's okay. I mean, I had a really great time. I always love talking with you, and I just really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Yeah, I'm just really grateful. So.
Massive thanks to Sarah Walsh for spending so much time with me and inspiring me and making this incredible zine, Horse Girl. Go check it out. SarahWalshMakesThings.com. She is also on Instagram at Sarah Walsh Makes Things. Highly recommend going and following along with her work. It's gorgeous. It'll add some great stuff to your feed as well as your heart and soul and mind. I'm back with a creative call to adventure. The BMT, the big meaty taste. If you don't know, an Italian BMT is a sandwich at Subway. A lot of people don't know that BMT stands for big meaty taste. And I just thought that was appropriate for what we're going to talk about here at the end. Big meaty taste. How do you make your work have some meat? And that could be vegetarian meat, vegan meat. It could be an impossible meaty flavor that is in your creative work. But I am sold out on the idea that in order to make great creative work that resonates on deep levels enough to build a practice on, you have to make stuff that's not just fashionable or timely. You have to tap into the timelessness of archetypes and things that move you on a deeper level. And I think there's no better place to get started on that journey than going back to your childhood and finding what were the symbols that I was obsessed with. What were the things that I just couldn't stop thinking about? What were the stickers I collected? What were the cards I collected? Go back to that time and just start making a list on all of the symbols and archetypes that you can find. And if you have a hard time thinking about like, what's an archetype? That sounds scary and weird. It is, but also it's not. The way I think about archetypes is it's what people call a thing. You know, when someone's like, oh yeah, it's a thing. That's an archetype. Horse girls were a thing, right? Like superheroes are a thing. Aliens are a thing. Those were my two that came up, and I started to dive deeper into what possibly drew me in to these symbols, because it wasn't just fashion. It wasn't just because they were timely. Like these are things that, sure, they were of the time, but they spoke to me in a timeless way. They spoke to me in a deeper way where I nerded out on these things much more than my peers. Or maybe I just had a couple friends or one friend where we both were like, this thing we're freaking obsessed with, right? And then I start thinking about that beyond the noun, but beyond the superhero. What is a superhero all about? It's about being different in a positive light. What's being an alien about? Being different in a extraordinary, extraterrestrial kind of way, right? And I think it was speaking to the ways in which I felt different than everybody because of my neurodivergence. And so those are symbols that I think about and put in my work and inspire me as I go to make stuff. I think finding these personal archetypes and building your own personal symbolism and mythology is key. It's really, really hard to make art when you only think about the adjectives, when you only think about the style and the surface. But you need some big, meaty taste to sink your teeth into, and so does your audience. They need nouns. And if you go look at your favorite artist, you can probably write down nouns. You can write down symbols that show up in their work over and over again, because those symbols are things we can see. They're things we can interact with. They're things that we could literally hold in our hands. And that helps us put our hands around the work in a more literal fashion and have more to go at. So think back to your childhood, see if you can find some big meaty taste to inject into your creative work. Each episode of Creative Pep Talk is designed to help you maintain a consistent creative practice. If you're trying to transform your creativity from an infrequent hobby into a real discipline, sign up to our newsletter at andyjpizza.substack.com so that you never miss an episode. Creative Pep Talk is part of the Podglomerate Network. You can learn more at podglomerate.com. Massive thanks to my team, Sophie Miller for content editing and co-writing, to Connor Jones of Pending Beautiful for editing and sound design, and thanks to all of you for listening. Until next time, stay pepped up.